Morning. Morning.
Try the F5 up.
I'll just put it back on and disconnect it.
Good morning, Deputy Mayor, Councillors, CEO, Directors, ladies and gentlemen. Let us acknowledge the traditional custodians of this wonderful place we call home, and in our valley that's the Iwi people. Pay our respects to their elders past, present and those emerging, and honour them for their continuing connection to our land and our community. This meeting, of course, is being broadcast live, and I draw your attention to the top right-hand corner of the screen. For those people who are in our public gallery today, by being here, your voice and your image, you consent to be recorded and published in accordance with our bylaws. Welcome to our online viewers as well. Thanks, councillors. Declare the meeting open. And we have Pastor John Wright to lead us in prayer today. Pastor John.
Thank you, Your Worship. Pray. Loving Father, we do just come before you this morning and recognise that you are the God who dwells in perfect light. And Father, on behalf of the churches in the region, I thank you for our Mayor, our councillors, our council staff, and for this wonderful region in which we live. Father, we just pray this morning we come before you and know that you promised to give us wisdom if we would ask in faith. And so we come this morning asking, Lord, for all who would be willing to receive it, that you would pour out your heavenly wisdom, which is pure and peace-loving and full of mercy and good fruit. Lord, hold back and bind up all wisdom that is not from you. Father, pour out your love, that the councillors, the Mayor, the council staff would so act for the good, the justice and the peace of our region. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thanks, Pastor John. Thank you. The Everton on council business. Our apologies today. Condolences? Any condolences? No condolences? Anybody to declare a conflict of interest? No conflicts of interest. The minutes of the meeting of the 12th of May have been circulated. Somebody would like to move that they be signed as a true Greek record. Councillor May moves, Councillor Jones seconds. Those in favour? Any against? Motion is carried. No business arising out of this, no mirror minutes. So let's move on then for the reports and recommendations that we have to consider in today's agenda. 11.1.1 is the Strategic Financial Report for the month of April. We've had briefings on this, but CEO.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just want to report a favourable variance of 3.1 million against year to date. Mainly due to all categories of revenue, apart from grants going up a bit, and on the expenses line, depreciation going down a bit. Other main contributors to that, we continue to watch the CapEx. CapEx is 62.8 million. It's about 58% year to date. There is a significant uptick in the CapEx expenditure happening at the back end of the year, but that's the one to watch.
Thank you, CEO. And that's great work at this stage of the year to bring our deficit forecast at 5 million down to 3 million, so finding 2 million is absolutely outstanding work. Are there questions for the CEO? We've had briefings on this. No questions. Somebody like to move then the adoption. Councillor May moves, seconded by Councillor Mann. Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. As the CEO reported, the $3.1 million variance against the year-to-date budget is favourable, which is great. And we are in a strong cash position with about 280 million in the investment portfolio. We have a strong balance sheet. The rate arrears are well below the Category 5 Council benchmark, and that's approximately $13 million owing at the moment. We have highlighted in the report areas where we're watching. The MECC revenue continues to be watched, and the guys over there are doing a great job trying to make sure that we stay on budget there. As the CEO mentioned, depreciation is always a challenge in a council where we have so many assets, and the valuations of those assets vary our depreciation forecasting, so that's an area to watch. And then the supply of material, due to high demand in the construction industry at the moment, and some supply of equipment is causing some concerns there as well in our capital delivery. So, and of course, as we've heard on the news today, COVID-19 continues to play a part, and it's foreseeable that our council will continue to monitor that and the effects of COVID-19 going forward.
Thanks. Councillor May. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Excuse me. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried. Thank you. Let's move on. 11.1.2, the Interim Management Report. This is the 2021 Interim Management Report that's presented to me, and we have to table this report for it to be received by Council. The Auditor General's observation in the report of 2019-2020, which you may recall identified 2 deficiencies for the Council. Both of those deficiencies have been re-mentioned in this interim report. That is the revaluation of our infrastructure assets and the employee leave entitlements accruals. Both of those are being addressed by the CEO. Other than that, this report suggests no significant deficiencies that have been reported in the interim report. CEO, so I think what you'd like to say?
Just a couple of follow-on comments. Councillor May just mentioned the COVID virus. That's an ongoing challenge for bringing down the leave entitlements. It is trending down, albeit slower than we would have thought. A lot of people are deferring holidays and travel on the basis that they don't want to get locked down and things like that. But as I said, it remains a focus area. It is trending slowly in the right direction. In relation to the asset management, we do have significant focus in that. We are in the budget going forward, intending to continue with the temporary resources we've got there, and we are putting up the proposal to make a couple of those resources permanent as well to support the ongoing need in that asset management space.
Questions for the CEO? No questions. Would somebody like to move that the Council receives the report? Councillor May moves. Councillor Ballard seconds. Councillor May.
No, so I think we've said all that needs to be said.
Councillor Ballard, are you speaking for or against? You seconded it. You've got to be speaking for. Thank you.
I'll make note of the first deficiency in the fact that we're increasing the frequency from 5 to 3 years. As with any increase, while it's very necessary, as with any increase in service in any aspect of council, it comes with commensurate costs. And while I commend this, I just speak to raise that issue with our operations generally. As I said, and I repeat again, any increase in service, any increase in activity is at increased cost. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Ballard. Are there any other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Let's move on to the receipt of some reports now. The Development Services monthly review report for April. Director.
Thank you, Worship. And April was another busy month for Development Services, so I'll quickly run through some highlights. I just wanted to point out there is an error on page 44 of the agenda in the report in relation to development application numbers. So numbers shown for previous years was cumulative, whereby the numbers for 2021 have not been shown in this way. So just for comparison, the cumulative numbers until the end of April 2020 was 108, while the same figure for this year is 100.3. So just shows that we're still experiencing quite a bit of growth in that area. Public consultation is underway on the second major amendment of the Makai Region Planning Scheme. There are a number of amendments included as part of the package, including updated various parts of the planning scheme in response to new information, studies, and completed development approvals, and addressing a number of workability matters identified since the scheme commenced. Aeration devices were installed in the goose ponds after their annual servicing and maintenance. These devices help oxygenate the water and improve conditions for aquatic species, including fish. Works have been completed on the replacement of play equipment, installation of a solid roof shade structure, and refurbishment of picnic shelters at Cane Cutters Drive Park. The park has now been reopened to the public and is proving very popular. The first samples have been collected as part of the Botanic Gardens Lagoons desilting trial. While still early days, the results and the fact that weeds and grasses are growing well in the trial plots are a good indicator that the silt could be reused on site. Luminaire, who engaged to prepare Council's event strategy, and now assisting Council with a structural efficiencies audit to make recommendations in relation to the way that Council plans, facilitates and regulates events. The aim is to improve Council's operations in this space and for a better level of service to be provided to event organisers. And now checking in on the Sugar Shed. The team have been testing expanding the offerings, with the venue now being made available for small events. There are a number of bookings in April, including a corporate booking for a barbecue, and there are more bookings for May and June. The Sugar Shed also held its second Triple S Sesh in April with music and family activities held on Sunday afternoon. So with that, I'd like to present this report to Council for consideration. Happy to take questions.
Thank you, Director. Questions for the Director, Councillor Bonaventura.
Well, firstly, thank you to the Director for explaining the graph on page 44, because I was blown away. I'm thinking we're not doing as good as we thought, but it's sort of that. Will it be shown cumulative from now on, or how are we going to report it?
Director.
Thank you, Worship. We'll correct the error and it'll be cumulative from now on.
Right, thank you. Another
Councillor Bonaventura.
On page 51, there just appears to be a steady decline in play equipment and maintenance inspections over the last couple of months. Is there a reason for this?
Director.
Yes, thank you, Worship. Yeah, we've just had some staff absences, so we've had some people leave and be away on leave, which has led to less inspections over the last couple of months.
Right. I assume it'll be rectified and we can discuss that later.
Yeah.
Also on page 51, the hours shown on park maintenance present is quite high at the moment. Is that council staff only, or does it include contractors as well?
Director.
Yes, thank you, Worship. That's total maintenance activities.
So it includes contractors. And then another one, if I can, on page 56. In relation to the building improvement and rebate program, I notice we have 13 applications and has been received. Over what period is that?
Director.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. That's just for 2021, so those applications were all received this financial year. They've all been assessed and we expect them all to be acquitted by the end of the financial year.
Right, up to the financial year, thank you.
Councillor Bella.
On page 59, the report, economic indicators, once again, very handy, but lacking the actual job vacancies in the area. So my question is to the Mayor. You access SEEK quite regularly. Can you give us an update on those numbers? I worked out from some rough maths that we've got approximately 3,760 people unemployed. I was wondering what vacancies we've got in the area.
Generally, over the last 2 weeks, SEEK, and that's just one job board. We have one that we subscribe to it as well. Yeah. But SEEK runs about 1,200 vacancies a day for the last week. A lot of those vacancies are multiples. So they're seeking several casuals, they're seeking several jobs in the same ad. So when you go through and add it up, there's probably in the vicinity of 1,800 jobs vacant.
And there are.
In our region at the moment.
Would it be correct to say that there'd be, you see plenty of just advertisements on the door of businesses, those aren't always reflected in
Correct.
SEEK, are they? Thank you.
So it's significant, but having said that, if you have a look at Townsville and Cairns, there's similar numbers. Rockhampton is about half of ours. So it's up and down the eastern seaboard. There's vacancies all over the place, and yet we're running a 5%, whatever it is, unemployment. Further questions, Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Worship. I just have two questions for the Director, if that's okay. Director, you mentioned the regional events strategy, so I won't read out everything that's in there because you've already mentioned it. But I just wanted to ask whether or not we look at the community development principles that our community development team work through, which is where when we're doing events and we're giving out funding, we're trying to do giving the hand up, not the repeated hand out theory. And the other question was, are you able to, and take it on notice if you don't know it right now, be able to tell me the cost of the events boot camp in 2021?
Director.
In relation to the first question, so all the applications under the Invest Makai program go through the committee, the advisory committee that's set up for that has a number of councillors sitting on that, and we assess the merits of the event based on the economic return to the region. But we do consider things like the stage of development the event is at, whether it's an emerging event, whether it's well established, and so our support, in working out whether we support and to what level, that's the discussion that we have around what the event needs and the benefit it provides back to the community as well. In relation to the second question, sorry, what's the
The
Cost
cost
of boot camp.
for boot camp.
I will have to take that on notice.
All right.
Thanks.
And my second question was on page 58 in relation to the Serena Sugar Shed business reviews. You mentioned the Triple S session, or sesh, but it also says in the report that it wasn't as successful this last event. The initial event was much better, even though the weather was poorer. But the report states that it's planned to be reviewed, but it's going to continue. And I guess I'm wanting to know why wouldn't review it first rather than continue. That was the question I really had.
Yeah.
Director?
Yes. So I don't know 100%. I have to check and get back to you, but I suspect we've only held it twice. I think it's worth continuing it because if we stop it to do the review, we sort of lose that momentum. Okay. So I think the intention is for it to be an ongoing review and play around with tweaking the event, but to keep it going to try and build the momentum.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Director.
you, Worship.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. Any further questions? No further questions for this report? And would somebody like to move its adoption? Councillor England, seconded by Councillor Jones. Councillor England.
Thank you, Worship. The Director mentioned all of the cool things in the report already. I mentioned that, as per usual, most sections of the report are in the green, with a couple of things around the Botanic Gardens also mentioned, but the good news around that is, as the Director stated, there's some really good indicators that the silt that's been taken out may be able to be reused and is not in fact contaminated. We wait and see. Just out of interest, the development assessment is the development assessment is still showing a positive variance to revenue, and that exceeds budget projections. But there's an operational works application that's been approved for plantation palms for another 24 residential lots. The Director also mentioned the regional event strategy implementation, and that's of course designed to increase efficiencies in that area. Mackay Beach horse races expressed some interest. It looks like we're on the right track to get one of our premier events back on track at this stage. Also, the management mentioned the planning framework for Finchatton and Youngler townships being prepared. I just wanted to add that even though we've modelled the Finchatton Youngler mountain bike trailhead on what went on in Derby. It had tremendous support down there, but one of the things that was lacking, the perception was that there wasn't much consultation with the locals. I'm really pleased to see that we're doing everything as well as the people in Derby have done, plus the increased consultation with those members of the community and the Yui and Witty peoples. So really pleased to see how we've approached that. And my last, just to mention that in the spirit of mountain biking, the Mackay Cup is on this weekend at Roland Park, Saturday and Sunday. What's different this time is it's the last opportunity for international riders to get UCI points in the lead up to the Olympics. So there'll be some top-notch riders from Australia and New Zealand. If people are interested in seeing that, I encourage them to go out for a look.
Thanks, Councillor England. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Councillor Jones, speaking for.
Thank you, Your Worship. I wanted to mention on page 39 the Hooked on Makai campaign, that it's giving our local fishing celebrities a chance to show people in our region why they love fishing in our region and promoting the region as being a best fishing destination in Queensland. I also note what Councillor England said about the strategic planning on page 46 around the Pioneer Valley Mountain Bike Track moving forward, and that the final survey for Youngler actually closed yesterday. So now our strategic team can, form up how these townships are going to look moving forward with the anticipated growth due to our world-class mountain bike track in the valley. On page 55, I note that Sound Australia have been engaged by Mackay Tourism to do the feasibility study, as Councillor England said, on the beach horse races. I'm just not sure how this event is going to move forward into the future, and I know that Sound Australia will, look at that through their auditing, etc., etc. I know that the previous event never really made money, and that's why it never eventuated forthcoming down the track. It would be great if it could be self-sustaining. I note that with this company being engaged, we're hoping that Makai Tourism will get this feasibility study in November, and I do wish them well in creating a successful event. But Your Worship and Councillors, I would be very, very hesitant to support an ongoing funding for an event such as this, and my reasons being is that over the years, council do put in-kind and financial assistance into these previous events, and like I said, they've failed to become self-sustaining. So it's going to take some convincing for me to support council's involvement in this event going forward. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. Any other speakers? Councillor Bonaventura speaking for.
Yes, Your Worship.
Thank you.
Just a couple of quick points. It was good to see the Cone Street Park upgrade is progressing well. Now, this project started in the last term of council, and it's finally coming to fruition. And I know it's going well because I get regular contact from a resident on one of the boundaries to it, so it's going well. And just another one in relation to upcoming events. As part of our economic development report, there's a section on upcoming events, and there are 13 listed to go ahead between June and the end of August, 9 of which have been assisted by Invest Mackay Fund. This is pleasing to see and a great way to shake off some of those COVID blues, so well done.
Thanks very much, Councillor Bonaventura. Are there any other speakers? No other speakers. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried. Thank you. Your Services Monthly Review for April. Director Lang.
Your Worship. Safety continues to be a focus of the department with no LTIs reported since 1718. A recent external audit on safety found that MRC confirmed that all 31 elements of the National Health and Safety Audit tool were complied with. Our benchmark score was 84.36%, which exceeds the pass mark of 70% and places MRC amongst the top performing councils. Still on safety, we've seen an improvement in the percentage of corrective actions completed before the due date. Although still short of the target, our continued focus reflects an improvement on last quarter. Work continues on a number of business improvement projects, including a review of our policy, planning and risk frameworks. This project is a significant body of work, but important in aligning and delivering on our strategic vision and purpose. A total of 8,390 calls were received in April, which was 2,000 more calls than the same time last year and 800 calls higher than the 3-year average. Despite this, customer satisfaction remains high at 96% of completed surveys indicating customers were satisfied with the services provided. Several building improvement projects were completed during April, including a complete re-roof of the Finch-Hatton Railway Station. Local spend is up this month, with 75% of MRC's total spend being put back into the local economy. Financial Services continue to develop their 21-22 budget and long-term forecast, on top of completing the March budget review and the interim external audit of our finances. So well done to that team. Information Services continue to achieve high internal customer satisfaction results, with 99% of customers reporting their experience met or exceeded their expectations. The work of Information Services often goes unnoticed until something goes wrong, so it's delightful to report that all applications were 100% available during the month. The MRC Women in Leadership program ended in April. 40 individuals participated in the program, with 20 mentees gaining useful, valuable insights and support from their mentors within the organisation. I personally was proud to be part of this successful program, and a big thank you to People and Culture for coordinating this program. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Director. I too would like to acknowledge the huge amount of work that's done by the Financial Services team in the preparation of this budget. It's been very smooth, well, from my perspective. I know the CEO's had lots and lots of meetings, but well done to the team. Are there questions? Councillor Mann.
So, electronic page 70, in relation to shared services and the KPIs that have been in the red for 2 months in a row, I'm just concerned whether we have the right amount of staffing. I know there was high call volumes experienced, and there is a note that says there's been an increase in other work activities, but I'm just wondering if we're expecting too much from our staff.
Director?
So yeah, we are monitoring that. It's difficult when we get new staff, it takes them a while to get up to speed. So we've had about 6 or so new staff trained, so that, but we are monitoring it because we are trying to push more people to the phones and to online services. So we've just got to make sure we've got enough staff to cope with the increasing volumes.
And one more question. The continuing challenge around skilled resources in the information services area, and the report mentions strategies around partnerships with educational facilities and other key organisations, and I just wondered how they are progressing.
Director.
Yes, so we've actually put in for a grant, which would get us a Microsoft trainee. So we're waiting to hear whether that grant has been successful and whether we move forward with that. But we're looking at what else we can do in partnering with other local businesses to improve the skills for the region.
Thank you.
Further questions? Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. On page 76, the graph there that shows the resignations, and it's got in brackets in left without notice. Do we track the reasoning that people are resigning? Is that sort of information tracked?
We do offer every person who leaves an exit interview. Roughly 20 to 30% of employees complete that. So that gives us some indication, and it's just talking with their supervisor usually fine, but I don't know if we actually record anywhere the reason for their leaving.
Councillor May.
Just a further question. So is it useful to be tracking to see if there's any trends in that space? Like if we're, and I don't say that 15 people is a high number when we employ 1,200 odd staff, but just that curiosity, I suppose, to see if there is any emerging issues that are trending across those resignations.
So obviously we look at the exit interviews and we take anecdotal. Some people don't really tell us why they leave. So yeah, so we do to a certain extent, but we could do that.
Okay, further questions? No further questions? Somebody like to move the report's adoption? Councillor Jones moves, Councillor Mann seconds. We get those two. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to mention on page 70, shared services, a really big congratulations to our call centre staff, who are our frontline workers. They did exceed their customer request completion timeframes, and to top it off for this month, the normal expectation for satisfaction on their calls is normally 85%, and they achieved 96% customer satisfaction for the month of April. So that was a great achievement, and pass on my congratulations. Thank you, Director.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jones. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Councillor Mann.
Thank you. So I wanted to mention no LTIs again. So since 2017-18, only one incident and 100% of monthly action plans completed, which is fantastic. So I want to thank the Director and all the staff for that. Business improvements are progressing, and one I'm really pleased to see progressing is our standpipe process. It's been cumbersome and I think very labour intensive, so it's really good to see if we can streamline that. That will be really good. Again, the stats for shared services are pretty impressive, really. So 4,869 text messages around rates arrears, and good to see that could possibly be rolled out as well for animal registration. 6,700 correspondence emails received. That is huge. And registration of documents into our electronic database increased by 600. So you can see the pressure the staff have been under, let alone, I guess, staff shortages as well, or new staff. I'm really pleased to see the complete re-roof of the Finchatten Railway Station building, which is heritage listed. That's a really important part of the history of Finchatten, and has seen a lot of freight and passengers leave, depart and come back there. So I'm really pleased to see that it has been repurposed and that it will continue to be maintained into the future. And I'd like to congratulate the Director on being part of the leadership program. I think it's really, really important for people in our organisation to see career progression, to know how they can do it, but to be mentored by a leader as well.
Thank you, Councillor Mann. Councillor Bonventura speaking for.
Yes, Your Worship. Just firstly, staff turnover. Our 12-month average for staff turnover was 15.26%, which is the highest turnover rate since May 2019, and our monthly turnover was 1.68%. I think this is to be expected when Makai has a very high job vacancy rate, which Councillor Bella pointed out earlier today, and you said 1,200 in SEEK alone. While we would rather this lower, I think we are faring okay when you consider that the Australian Human Resources Institute 2018 found the average turnover in regional areas to be about 19.32%, so we're doing well. But I think it's important, if I'll comment on another area, just in relation to our overview of external customer service. And I think it's important to comment on the red KPI section in the call centre, which Councillor Mann raised. Now, to not get a red tick, we expect staff to answer 80% of the calls in less than 60 seconds. And I think that is really being a bit tough. To give you an example, Monday this week, I spent 31 minutes on hold to a major company in Australia to answer a 2-minute query. So when I finally got through, it took 2 minutes to sort out, but I waited 31 minutes on hold. Now, if we look at why they got that red tick, and we look at the actual average time it did take, it was only 1 minute and 11 seconds. So, yeah, we're only 11 seconds over and we end up with red ticks. So I think we're being a bit tough. So I too, like Councillor Jones said, would like to congratulate the staff on what they're doing and how they're coping with the situation.
Thanks, Councillor Blanchard. Point well made. Are there other speakers? Councillor Bella speaking for.
Interesting enough, I want to focus on the same thing. The customer service team achieving a 96% satisfaction rate. As I said in a previous meeting, it's a bit like the unemployment statistics. The lower you get, the harder it is to fill. There's people, for whatever reasons, it's harder and harder to employ them. It's similar with this. You know, I think it's actually unrealistic to expect anything greater. This is probably would exceed expectations, in that there's any number of reasons that that 4% can't be satisfied. It may be, okay, our staff member might be having a bad day, it might be a personality clash, but it also might be the expectation of the person that calls. And I think in that case, that probably takes up a lot of that 4%. Interestingly enough, for the last 5 years, people that have had complaints with council, like at events that you go to, social media, that sort of thing, I've actually challenged them along the lines of, have you contacted council about this? Interestingly enough, I would say it is the direct inverse of the 96%. Of the people that are complaining about a lack of service, 4% have contacted council and 96% haven't done so. And in many cases, what they're complaining about, when you really drill down, is not the responsibility of council at all. So congratulations on a 96% result, and to be honest, I think that exceeds expectations.
Thanks, Councillor Bella. Are there other speakers? No other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Against? The motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. 11.3.2 is the lease of land to Stillmark. Now, this matter was laid on the table at the last ordinary meeting of council. You will know, councillors, that we've had a petition received concerning this particular item on our agenda. It only came in this week, so it hasn't made today's agenda. When you look at this is a lease of land. This is not a debate on the tower itself, because we don't have a DA. So we can proceed, in my view, with this the vote on this. We can receive the petition at the next meeting and then deal with the request for consultation if there is a DA, or if and when a DA is lodged on this particular lease that we're debating today. So I think that's a legitimate way to deal with it. I can't see any reason why we'd hold this up. And as I said, the petition that you've seen has only been received this week, so it's too late to get it on the published agenda. So we've got no option really other than to deal with it at the next meeting of council. But I don't see any reason why it should delay this particular agenda item. Other questions? This is pretty straight. Councillor Anglin.
Do we consider this a time critical sort of situation we're in now, or we're talking about, you know, it's going to take several months to get the DA in anyway, or are they?
Well, we don't know that. I mean, it's up to the applicant when they put their DA in, if they put their DA in, All we're dealing with here is a lease, and it doesn't, as you said, as you've seen in the report, that's all we can deal with today is the lease, whether we do that or not. There doesn't seem to be a reason not to. Councillor Jones, you have a question?
Yes, Your Worship. Just from recent discussions, I think it was said that a development application is potentially, is that code accessible? Correct me if I'm wrong.
This is a code accessible DA, yes.
Yeah, so if that's the case, usually our codes don't have, code accessible applications don't have consultation. So how do we get around that if we've got people that have sent a petition in and are hoping for that opportunity?
And that's what we will deal with it when we receive the petition and send the petition off to the officers. The CEO will then make that consultation with the officers and to see if we can possibly talk to the DA. If and when a DA comes in, we would talk to the applicant about their process of engaging with the public. And it may be that we elect then to engage those people in Lorraine Court and around there within 500 metres of the tower, if and when that application comes in. So we might elect to do that, but it shouldn't hold up this process.
Okay, thank you.
Director, you have a question? You're going to make a statement. Oh, I think we can allow that.
We've actually spoken to Stillmark and they are happy to do consultation.
Excellent, okay.
So
Right.
we can make that in.
Right, very good. I didn't know that, that's good. Okay, are there further questions? Would somebody like to move the adoption of this report? Councillor May, seconded by Councillor Mann. Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Worship. And as we know, we laid this on the table to give the community an opportunity to make comment on it. There was a couple of emails that did come in and Council has responded to them. I think this is really a straightforward matter now of leasing of land and as we've just discussed, the opportunity to do some community engagement, receive the petition at the next council meeting will all come to fruition. So happy to move as per the recommendation.
You speak against? Any other speakers? Up on the motion, those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. Let's move on to our ECI reports for the month of April. The first one is transport and drainage. Director.
Thank you, Your Worship. So pleasing again to see no LTIs for the month of April. However, there were 6 safety incidents recorded. In relation to unsealed roads, we've just done our RACAS, so our Road Assessment Condition Assessment System run, so we should get that data which will then inform us about the works program going forward. The unsealed road remains a focus for the rest of the year. We've had a focus on spending some of the grant funding we had for works for Queensland and the federal funding for COVID, so now back into our own program. So the budget is tracking a little bit behind, but we expect by the end of the year we'll be able to get that up. It's also this time of year that we focus on drains, so getting in and cleaning out drains. We're still seeing some issues with the rain we're seeing in relation to the wetness of the base and some issues in getting into some, but continue to be a focus. And asset management obviously continues to be a focus, so continue to work on the WIP and the works in progress and trying to get that down, capitalisation, and obviously the data cleanse and condition assessment of our assets. So happy to take any further questions.
Thanks, Director. Questions for the Director on the Transport and Drainage report? No questions for the Director. Would somebody like to move then the adoption of the Transport and Drainage report for the monthly review of April? He moves. Councillor Hassan moves, seconded by Councillor Mann. Those in favour. Oh, sorry, I better put it up first of all. Councillor Hassan.
Thank you, Worship. I'd just like to echo the Director's reports and to say that I'm sure that the members of the public will be pleased to learn that Council has engaged an additional contract resources crew who are currently working in the Kaylin-Bloomsbury area. A field services grader team is also scheduled to undertake unsealed road maintenance works, supplementing our existing resources, which will commence, should commence mid-May. Routine maintenance of the open drainage network is ongoing and continues obviously to be impacted by wet weather that we've had. Special maintenance works, which involves vegetation clearing and desilting, are works in progress with works being undertaken in the Paget and South Mackay areas and further works program for a number of drains across the region. One thing I did want to highlight, one of the high costs to Council that a lot of people would be unaware of is our depreciation, which we mentioned earlier in our budget. The valuation of our Council assets greatly impact that depreciation, and we see that those temporary roles in our asset management team have now been converted to full-time permanent jobs. While this team largely works in the background, their level of responsibility to the organisation is significant, and as the Director mentioned, includes data cleansing, review and assessment of our assets, comprehensive valuations and a whole lot more, all of which have an impact on Council's bottom line. So they're an important part of our business, and I'd just like to recognise that team's efforts.
Thanks, Councillor Hassan. Speaker against. Any other speakers? Councillor Bonaventura speaking for.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just like to echo what Councillor Hassan has said, especially in relation to the rural roads and the extra grader team that's out there. I think that's great. And also in relation to drains, it's probably one of those areas that I get the most phone calls on in relation to, even if they're clean, we're going to get flooded. If they're not clean, we're going to get flooded. So it is good to see that we're out there doing that. But I'm just also pleased to see GHD has commenced working through our priority list in relation to our rural culvert condition assessments, our urban storm water condition assessment, and our water and sewer condition assessments. And this will give us a better understanding of our ageing assets. In the area of asset valuations, the AEC group has been engaged to deliver several outcomes in the water and sewer portfolio. And I'll just pick 3 or 4 of those. Comparison of unit rates from previous valuations to other recently completed asset valuations. Reviewing assets that are close to reaching end of life, one of my favourite areas. And perhaps the most important one, a forecast on any potential financial impacts to Council because of a comprehensive valuation of our water and sewer networks. And look, I look forward to the results on this, as we need, this will guide us into the future in budget deliberations, etc., etc. So I really do look forward to that. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Bonaventura. Are there any other speakers? No other speakers. I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried. Thank you. ECI still for April waste.
Thanks, Your Worship. Again, from a safety perspective, again, good to see no incidents. Of concern, again, is the gas cylinder being identified in one of our, obviously, garbage trucks. Lucky enough, it was picked up as part of the cameras going in, so there was no issue, but obviously this has been an ongoing issue for us. We have an education program around it, but we're still obviously getting quite a few incidents occurring. So continue to obviously reaffirm with the public to be conscious about what they put into our garbage bin. Hogan's Pocket landfill, so tonnages are up, so it has been a bit of fluctuation occurring in tonnages going in, but so it's the strongest we've seen for the last 12 months in relation to the April tonnages, above 8,000 tonnes. The biannual waste stream analysis has been conducted through the month, so it'll be interesting to get those results back and then look at the level of contamination we're seeing across our waste stream. So we'll certainly report that back to Council once we have all the data analysed. We've just, through our MRF operator, negotiated to get a new baler in. So the existing baler was something that was carried over from the previous operation, but obviously near the end of the asset life caused some issues. So a new baler's been ordered and should be installed shortly. And in relation to the budget, the current year to date is tracking well, and the forecast that should be still the same at the end of the year. Happy to take the questions.
Thanks, Director. Questions for the Director on waste? Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have 3. Page 121 in relation to MRF. Council were able to meet at MRF recently. We had our tour out there, and we're doing so much in our community since the lockdown last year. So I'm wanting to know, when will the MRF be starting up tours again for the public, like the schools and stuff? I'm not sure whether it's part of their contract or it's something that we do, because Fiona used to do them. So just not sure on when we're going to start that up again. The second,
Deal with that one.
Deal with that one first.
Director.
Yeah, through Your Worship, there's a couple of elements of that. So our education officer, Fiona Patterson, recently retired and left the organisation. So we're obviously in the process of recruiting for that role. So previous to that, she had gone to a job share, but unfortunately the job share person also left. So fundamentally, we've got to get our education officer back. And then also the tours were restricted originally around COVID access. So we're still conducting sessions with school children using the mobile trailer and things like that. So we'll continue to review the opportunities we can to get those schools back on board.
Okay.
Second question.
Second one was page 125. How much longer will we be receiving waste from Rocky and Central Highlands?
Director.
Yes, through your chair. So Obviously, the issue with Rockhampton was a fire to their MRF, so advice we received is they've just received the insurance funding for that. They've still got to go through the process of obviously designing and building it. I think their target is near the end of this financial calendar year to be able to achieve that, so it will be at least another 7 months.
Okay, thank you.
And the third question?
Third question is on page 127, 6.2, the third dot point. Talks about a new waste oil shed that's been ordered and will be delivered in this month, in May. I'm wanting to know where they will go and are they for internal use or external use like outside clients?
Right.
Yeah, good question, councillors. They're replacing our existing sites. I'll just check where they were and get back to you about that.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Ballard? No? You're right. Councillor Bonham, you're up.
Oh, just on page 121, there's a video about illegal dumping. And just want to know whether that was funded in-house or was that part of some money that we get through the levy, or the waste levy that council pays. Is it a recoup money or?
Director.
Yeah, through your worship. So the video was funded through a grant program for illegal dumping hotspots, so state government funding.
Yeah,
so that's where we access the funding is out of.
Good, thank you.
It's good too. Further questions? No further questions? Would somebody like to move the waste report? Councillor Hassan moves, seconded by Councillor Ballard. Councillor Hassan.
Thank you, Worship. This month I thought I'd like to highlight a couple of areas in the report that the general public, again, might not be aware of. Council assists a significant number of local not-for-profit organisations which are listed in the agenda by providing fee waivers for disposal of their rubbish. So, of course, this is still a cost to council and hence to ratepayers. So I'd just like to remind people not to dump on charities. So take clean, good quality donations directly to the preferred charity and don't leave items that you wouldn't use yourself at their recycle bins to be for the charities to dispose of. As the Director mentioned, we continue to see an increase in tonnages received and processed at our materials recovery facility, which is due to the ongoing assistance we're providing to our neighbours in Rocky and Central Highlands. To me, this collaboration has actually provided a good opportunity, even though it was unplanned, and an insight into how we could potentially partner with other councils going forward around our waste disposal. I'd also like to again acknowledge the efforts of the many volunteers that assist our contractor at the incredible tip shop. So far this year, this financial year, they've provided over 2,500 volunteer hours up until April, which is a fantastic effort. They are volunteers, really are an integral part of our community, and so many organisations just wouldn't be able to operate without their assistance. So it's really important to continue to recognise their contributions. And again, following on from what the Director said, just highlighting to the community, to just pay attention to what you're disposing of. This month, again, the contractors have reported an incidence of a gas bottle in a rubbish truck and also a needle stick injury at our sorting facility, and it's just not good enough. There is plenty of other opportunities to dispose of those items, and these ongoing issues just keep occurring. We're putting out comprehensive public education campaigns, and we're just continuing to see this happen. So I just implore members of the community to consider the health and safety of our staff and contractors. We all want to go home safely at the end of the day, so consider other people's safety as well as your own.
Thanks, Councillor Hassan. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Councillor Ballard.
As is often said, you know, there's two sides to every story, and as we learn in council, there's probably three and more. But I raise the issue of the Hogan's Pocket landfill. Now, waste disposal tonnages have gone up, which on one hand is a good thing because it kind of indicates that, as suggested here in the report, that construction and demolition is going ahead, which means our economy is starting to tick along quite nicely. On the other hand, we've got to look at the fact that the greater the tonnage, the sooner we exhaust a finite resource, and that's the space available at Hogan's Pocket. I'd also like to probably echo what Councillor Hassan said in that every item of waste that we dispose of costs us, thus calls for free dumping, ultimately would be at great cost to ratepayers. And we already have free dumping if you look at it. We've got our waste vouchers, which I think that they're out there, people should take greater advantage of. But I once again feel that user pays is the best system. you can run across for this. So if you have more waste than is picked up in your bin, there is no reason why you shouldn't pay to have it disposed.
Thanks, Councillor Bella. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Bonaventura speaking for.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just following on from Councillor Bella about the tonnages at Hogan's Pocket, and I agree, it points to a strong performance within our region, because even in the report it says there is no single reason for the increase in waste received, but it can be attributed to increased regional development activity. So I think that's a very important point. And the other thing that points to the same thing is that out of our 305,000 plus bin lifts for the month, 40 were new services. So that's 40 new houses that have come online just in that month alone. And I can't finish today without saying the dump voucher presentation to the end of March came in lower than I, and most likely the director, expected at 26.1%. And that's our lowest March total since 2016. So yeah, it's a bit, don't know why it came in so low for that, but anyway, good report, thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Bonaventura. Are there other speakers? No other speakers? I'll put the motion then. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried. Thank you. And water from ECI.
Thank you, Richard. Again, pleased to see no LTIs in the water program. 2 incidents reported for the month. Currently, the budget's tracking along in line with expectations, and the forecast energy position should be achieved. You'll note in the report that we've moving to an integrated meter with our cable devices. So previously we've had a plug into existing mechanical meters, but advancement of that now comes as an integrated meter, which should give us longer battery life as well. So starting to implement those out as part of our meter replacement program. Water use remains low, but that's obviously linked to the rainfall that we're getting at present, but good to see people managing that well. Water accounts were issued, so they should be out and people reviewing those at the moment. So as I indicated last time, it's important to have a look at the weather conditions. So I think up to Christmas, between September and Christmas, we had less than 100 mil, and then post that through to March, we had something like 830 mil. So it's important to have a look at that first period of your water usage when you get your account coming through, if you don't believe the data that's in front of you. Other than that, I'm happy to take your questions.
Thanks, Director. Questions for the Director? No questions for the Director. Thank you. Would somebody like to move the adoption of the Water Services Report for the month of April? Councillor Mann moves, seconded by Councillor Hassan. Councillor Mann.
Thank you, Worship. I'd like to echo the Director's comments about no LTIs, and there was minimal incidents, so congratulations to the Water Services staff for their attention to safety. Of the 334 work orders generated in pathway, 93% were completed, which is above the target of 90%, so I think that's a really good achievement. It's a great result too when you consider that the initial request that's reported may not be what the actual job is when the staff go to do it, so it makes it a little bit more difficult for them. Interesting to note, 64 plumbing applications were approved, which is a 49% reduction over the previous month. And officers feel that might be attributed to the Home Builder grant, which finished on the 31st of March. So it'll be interesting to see what happens next month as well. Approval turnaround was 2 days, which is well within the 5-day target. And again, a credit to our staff. 17 new My H2O registrations, making the total 16,477, and that includes property owners, tenants, landlords, or real estate agents. So it's good to see that the word is getting out there too, that people can register. And water meters currently being read for billing purposes, and where water consumption has increased significantly from last period, a letter is being issued as well. So I think there's lots of measures in place for people to know about about My H2O and monitoring their own water usage.
Thanks, Councillor Mann. Speaker against? Any other speakers? Councillor Bonaventura, speaking for.
Yes, thank you, Worship. I'd just like to echo Councillor Mann's version. With the 49% decrease in plumbing applications, it was clear as a bell when you look at the graph where the home grant, the building grant started and where it finished. It just was up and back down. But just want to thank staff for the new graph in relation to the My H2O area. It brings it home in very clear terms, the volume of water lost by ratepayers and residents and commercial properties each month. So, last month alone, over 75 million litres in a month. At a rough guess, and if you look at costing, depending on what tariff you're on, could be somewhere between $130,000 and $160,000 worth of value that they have lost, basically, that they should be out there stopping those leaks and saving themselves that sort of money. So again, I say to residents, join my H2O, keep an eye on your own water usage and save yourself some money.
Thanks, Councillor Bonaventura. Are there any other speakers? No other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion is carried unanimously. Let's move on. So there's no petitions today, there's no tenders. We have a notified motion at 14.1, the notified motion requesting a review of Council's facilitating development in the Mackay region policy. Are there questions at all before we put this up? Would somebody like to move then? Councillor Jones moves, seconded by? Councillor Seymour, seconds. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Worship. In my opinion, this policy has been in place for too long. Ratepayers are facing increasing liability for the economic benefit of developers. Your Worship, when in a downturn, this type of policy is certainly vital to stimulate the economy, and in its original form 6 versions ago was what we needed back in 2014. Originally, the only way as a council we could justify taking less fees from developers was that it needed to benefit the ratepayers of Mackay. For example, providing jobs in a downturn, and in 2014, stimulating growth in areas such as the city heart, which was muchly needed. The only way to speed up and stimulate the growth was to shorten timeframes. We could only do that by giving concessions to attract developers to do so. Otherwise, you're not really stimulating anything. But now here are developers asking for extensions. Maybe they're taking their own merry time and land banking until economic development is suitable to them to make an extra buck. For me, this is not good financial management of ratepayers' funds, and I would like to remind councillors we've been elected to represent all of our residents and businesses alike. In this agenda today, it highlights on page 161 under the building statistics, and it shows a Class A category, which is generally a building, average house. It increased from April 2020 last year to April 2020 this year from 56 to 77, which is a proposed dollar value of $21 million to the region. Class 10A in that same table represents garages, sheds and carports, and we know our public in Mackay love their garages, sheds and carports. So in April 2020, we had a total of 57, and April 2021, we had 79. And again, this is a dollar value of $1.8 million to the region. I ask that my fellow councillors to think of ratepayers in making your decision bringing forward this review as a matter of urgency. I look forward to the workshop with my fellow councillors and staff to improve this policy. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Speaker against, Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Not so much speaking against, but I would like to propose an amendment to
What's the amendment?
to the motion to actually take out of the notified motion this wording, given the current buoyant economic climate, meaning that council's economic stimulation for developments may no longer be required. I just don't feel that we are in a position to make that statement at this time.
Okay, so that doesn't alter the intent of the motion. So the motion will, under your amendment, would be that the council brings forward the formal review of the policy, facilitating development, with such review to be completed by the end of August. Okay, I accept that as an amendment. Is there a seconder to the amendment? Councillor Mann, just to speak to the, we'll deal with the amendment, just to speak to the amendment.
Look, only just to reiterate, I don't think that we're in a position to actually make that statement in a motion at this point in time. I think the gathering of the data will we'll get an outcome, and we'll be able to make that assessment much better when the report comes back to council.
Speaker against, Councillor Bonaventura.
Thank you, Your Worship. I appreciate Councillor May's words, but this motion was brought by Councillor Jones, Bella, Seymour and myself. And I think that's our viewpoint on it at this point.
Councillor Bonaventura, once it's moved and adopted, it becomes a motion of the council.
Correct. But I'm saying I'm speaking against that amendment because I believe the words there are what was considered correct for this motion by the 4 councillors that brought the motion forward. Therefore, I urge councillors to vote no in relation to this amendment, because I believe you are changing what was brought forward by the councillors. Thank you.
I reiterate, Councillor Bonaventura, that this is a council motion now. Once it's moved and seconded, it becomes a council motion. I appreciate it coming forward, but that's the way the motion is treated once it gets to the table. Speaker for the amendment, Councillor England speaking for.
Thank you, Bishop. I think this is all semantics. I thought the wording was odd when I thought it as Councillor Bonaventura, he just used the word opinion. Our opinions have no place in here. None of us are economists. It's all unqualified opinion. I have no problem with the motion. I want, if the councillors have a right to ask our officers, who might ask other educated people about what should we do with this. So I'm happy to support that. But you know, buoyant means cheerful and optimistic. Well, it may be locally right now we may be cheerful. I'm not optimistic. I'm looking at the inflation figures from the US for the next 12 months. For the price of lumber, you know, the 40% of US dollars in circulation today were printed in the last 12 months. So I'm not optimistic. But that's my opinion, and it's irrelevant in this discussion. Let's take our opinions out of it and just stick to the facts and ask our officers to do something for us.
Okay, Speaker against the amendment, Councillor Bell.
I actually think that the wording in the original motion gives context as to why it's required. And while it may be considered that terming the current economic climate as buoyant is an opinion, it's an opinion echoed by economists, the Australian, the Courier Mail, the statistics in a development services report. Thus, I think it's an opinion formed on some very good data. Thus, I think that the amendment, while allowing the motion to go ahead, would actually remove the reasoning for us to do a review. Thank you.
Can you speak for the amendment? No, we can't sum up an amendment. Okay, so the amendment is that we remove the words, given the current buoyant economic climate, meaning that council's economic stimulation for development may no longer be required from the original motion. Those in favour? Those against? 1, 2, 3, 4. The amendment is carried. So the motion now reads that the council brings forward its formal review of policy number 81, facilitating development in the Makai region, with such a review to be completed by the end of August. Now, I know councillors in the original agenda item that went out, there was a different date. It had July. I think we all got the recirculated one. If you're happy to use that word, August. Okay, so August. And further that, as part of the review, councillors are involved in a workshop to understand the changes in the Makai economic situation prior to staff developing an updated policy. All right, so we're back to the motion. We've had a positive speaker. Is there a negative speaker? No, this becomes a motion. The amendment becomes a motion. So are there other speakers to this motion? Councillor Bell is speaking for.
Look, an economy bases itself on the principle of demand and supply, and there's no great economic killer than the lack of a workforce. What we found with looking at both unemployment figures, anecdotally, we are actually struggling to fill job vacancies in the area, which is an indicator that things are going pretty well. There are other indicators. However, what is concerning to me is that our policy, and I'm not actually contesting that we don't need a policy. What I'm saying is it's the focus of the policy. And if you look at it, I'm wondering whether, as things are starting to heat up, whether the focus of such a policy should be on connecting workers to available jobs, training those workers and that sort of thing. Now, the format of that I'm unsure, and that is why it was suggested that we hold a workshop where we actually get the views of some people that may be involved in the industry and may have some ideas that we can incorporate into a policy that effectively makes demand and supply commensurate with one another. Thus, I think that this is a very good motion. And anecdotally, once again, the faster you drive, the more you should check the fuel gauge. So in this case, I believe the economy is rolling along quite nicely. I think that checking the fuel gauge, seeing whether we are fueling in a correct way, is appropriate at this time.
Thanks, Councillor Bella. Speaker against. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Seymour, speaking for.
Yes, Your Worship. Yeah, the policy to me is quite straightforward, but like you said, the policy was put in place before to achieve the economy in the downtimes. But after sitting in yesterday on that HIA presentation, when the Speaker came out and said that the buyer's grant in the future will be really stopped, I want to ask questions, what can Council do to represent the first home buyers? And to me, with workshops and having different sectors involved, like the master builders and HIA, needs to be some context into why, what council can achieve by helping, and like it's affordable housing too. Like, once you take grants away from people, there's nothing else out there. So, my thing is with workshops involving different sectors of the community, like finance companies, real estates, and all that. At least we can come up with the best concept to suit everyone.
Thank you. Other speakers? Councillor May, speaking for.
Yes, thank you very much, Your Worship. And, I think with the wording that we have here now, this policy has been reviewed annually. It's nothing new. All we're doing here today is bringing that forward. I'm quite happy to support that. I think it's a timely exercise to do that check-in. But I think it will be interesting to gather all of the data necessary for us as a council then to make a determination of what that policy might look like going forward. So look forward to the workshop, look forward to the data being collected and collated, and we'll be able to be in a strong position to assess that.
Yeah. Are there other speakers? No other speakers? I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Any against? The motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Righto, so public participation, there's none. Late business. Anybody got late business? Councillor May.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. I really just wanted to mention the dedication service of the Half-Tide Beach Memorial Park and the Australian Defence Force Guard, National Guard, that was conducting that service. I think it was a credit to the organisers. It was a very good, well-run dedication service. I have to mention Tom Andrews, the person that's really been pushing and driving that project. It started around 10 years ago with an idea of creating a place down there that could serve as a memorial to returned service people. So I think on the weekend, the service was just fantastic. It was a very moving service. Your speech, Mr. Mayor, was very powerful and well received by the community down there. And I think between all of the Ports Corporation, the coal terminals, the community organisations, the progress associations, I think we've got a great outcome in renaming that park.
Thanks very much. And it was a tremendous coup to have a detachment of the Australian Federation Guard come to Mackay for the first time. It was very, very good. Are there other items of late business? Councillor Bella.
This may be a little longer. It's pretty involved, so big indulgence on it. The weekend before last, an All Abilities Cutters side travelled to Townsville, where they played a Townsville All Abilities side.
Had a pretty good coach, I hear.
That's not relevant. The score was also totally irrelevant. What was good to see was the participation levels. What was learnt from it is that I think while it was good that they had the opportunity to go up there and play that side, there was no direct contact made with the disabled community in Townsville to actually attend. That's been discussed and is for a proposed game in August. There's going to be more direct advertising from that point of view. Every Monday they have the All Abilities games down at the at BB Prent, well, in the Junior League grounds. And I've got to say thanks very much to the Queensland Rugby League for facilitating that. Skipping back, for the actual trip, it was decided that a bus was the safest way for people to travel. Buses nowadays are quite prohibitive cost-wise. We were given a very good deal by Mackay Transit coaches, and thank you to Councillor Townsend and a fellow called Wayne Millis for facilitating that. Thank you very much to McDonald's North Mackay, who basically paid for the bus. No, they did pay for the bus. I'm probably going against my word in naming them, but I think it's something you can't overlook. It was a considerable cost, and all the other people that actually contributed funds towards this trip. Now, a lot of those funds weren't used, and what it will be used for is Fun Day that's open to all people of all abilities, and to facilitate the game in August. I'd invite people. What was surprising is the number of people that aren't aware of the social activities that go on. So on the Mondays we've got that tag football game. There's a disco held once a month. It will be held at the PCYC this weekend, Saturday, at 4:30. Now that's run by Snags, Special Needs and Group Support, which do an amazing job, absolutely amazing job. So I'd ask people just to, with someone who has any form of disability, just to attend, or anyone that just wants to attend and become part of this. I make mention of the fact that Kath Andrews is the driver of all of this, does an amazing job. Kath actually had her 70th birthday yesterday or the day before. What we really need is another Kath. Kath can't do it forever. And I think the opportunity is right for someone to come and learn from what she does. This is a bit of a thing from a personal point of view. The guys were recognised at BB Print Stadium on Saturday night, the guys that went to Townsville. And in the actual Cutters game earlier that day, a young lad who is disabled ran onto the paddock. So not the sort of thing we see in cricket games. He was fully clothed, but the video of that went viral. The reason he ran on is a Down syndrome lad who ran up to his carer, who was actually one of the Cutters players. I was quite, thrilled. And there's another young lad, Eci. I gave him that nickname many years ago when I was coaching him. And I remember Eci was a lad who wasn't complying. He had a bigger opinion of his ability than he actually had at the time. He was given an ultimatum and he chose to take the walkout ultimatum. The next training session he turned up and apologised, and apparently when he got home his father spoke to him in a very strong fashion, and he came back. He's gone on and played rugby league to a relatively elite level. And it shows a number of things. One, it shows the influence that a strong family and strong values can have. He could have gone off and never come back. He was not given a soft option there at training. He was not given a soft option at home. And I think that's what made him the man he is today. And to be honest, the man he is today is a guy that helps people that are disabled when he doesn't need to. He's got plenty of other job opportunities, but he's chosen this. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Bella. Yeah, well done. Further areas of late business, Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Worship. Obviously, like all councillors, there's always so much on in our diaries, but so I won't go through the list. But yesterday I had the opportunity to go to Marion to do the Makai series. And I met at Melba House a couple of people that were visiting. I spoke to Amy and Charlie that were there both of them very passionate about their area and have some great ideas of things that they'd like to see in their area. So I encourage them to try and get a greater voice by maybe joining the men's shed or another group in the area to be able to facilitate and help them move forward with their projects. So watch this space. I'm sure we'll be hearing from them. And the My Town series, I'm sure will be coming to an end soon, but it's been really good to be able to connect with people in our rural areas. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. Any further late business? Councillor Green.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to give a shout out to CQ University and in particular Leanne Williams, who is the Campus Coordinator, Global Growth Division. The CQ University noticed that there was a gap in STEM learning experiences across our region for children and for youth. And so they've got a fantastic program through Whitsunday STEM to bring some of these great programs to children and youth on weekends and after school hours. And one of those was held on Saturday at the CQ University in their fantastic engineering building. And there was the prep to year 2 program and then 2 other programs after. It was a little bit Lego Masters meets engineering in STEM, and they, my 8 or 7-year-old got to build a conveyor belt. So fantastic programs are being run. Please link into their program. Split Spaces is also linking with CQ Uni often, as well as our own libraries to bring these programs. So if you have a child that is keen in STEM, then please link into those programs. There really is a lot on offer in our region. And the STEM festival is on very soon. So
thanks, Councillor Green.
Thank you.
Further areas of late business? No further areas of late business. Councillors, there's 4 items of confidential nature to consider. Most of those are perfunctory. The Legal Services Monthly Report, we've already had a briefing on that. That hasn't changed since that briefing. Is there a reason to go into confidential?
I'd like to go into confidential if that's possible.
Okay. Somebody moved that the council meeting be closed public. Councillor Jones, seconded by Councillor Green. Those in favour? Any against? The motion is carried. Thank you. Anybody out there? Are they all? Okay. All right. Welcome back. The 4 items of confidential to adopt right now. 17.1, the Legal Services Monthly Report. Somebody like to move the adoption. Councillor Bonaventura moves. Councillor Green seconds. Those in favour? Any against? The motion's carried unanimously. Thank you. 17.2, approve concessions under the Facilitating Development Policy in the Mackay region for April. Councillor Green moves. Seconded by Councillor Hassan. Those in favour? Any against? Councillor Jones has moved against. The motion's carried. 10-1. 17.3, the draft minutes of the Invest Mackay Events and Conference Attraction Program, the Advisory Committee meeting of the 12th of April and the 10th of May. There's 2 there. Councillor Green moves, second by Councillor Hassan. Those in favour? Any against? Motion's carried unanimously. 17.4, approved sponsorship under the Invest Mackay Events and Conference Attraction Program for April 21. Councillor Townsend moves, Councillor Hassan seconds. Those in favour? Any against? Councillor Jones has moved against. The motion is carried 10-1. Thank you very much, councillors. There's no further business today. Thank you for the meeting today. Thank you, CEO and directors. Today the meeting closed.